Hi, everybody. Welcome to OnPoint Mentors. We are thrilled tonight to have Rey Espineli, who is a strategic advisor, an international capital markets and investment banking and merchant banking professional. He is an entrepreneur. He's a highly sought after speaker and a global business strategist. Rey is based in Hong Kong and has over 30 years of international cross-border business experience. First of all, I want to thank you all for being here to hear our conversation with Rey Espineli, one of our OnPoint mentors. If you are looking for a mentor, check us out at onpointmentors.com. We have mentors from all over the world, as we have Rey here in Hong Kong. If you are a mentor and you're wanting to get your business or your consulting practice up and running as quickly as possible, also check us out, because we are basically a one-stop full service solution to get your business up and running as quickly as possible. So welcome, Rey.
Hi, how are you, Sylvia?
Good, good. How are you?
Good. It's early here in the morning in Hong Kong.
Did you get your coffee?
I got my coffee.
Oh, good. It's a big mug. Well, I've got my water here, so it's not quite cocktail hour. Well, it is actually over here, but I won't have my cocktail until after. But Rey, a career transitioning coach, can you give us a little bit of a background of how you got into this and what led you to become an expert in helping people transition their career?
Well, I think that one of the things that I've done all of my life really is to go through a number of transitions, from changing careers to changing countries to within my own field, from going from buy side to sell side, from going into markets to advisory, strategic advisory. It's something that is rarely done by people in the industry, when you're going from markets to projects, or going from merchant banking to investment banking. It's not something that's quite normal. And so you have to give you an idea, when I found myself interested in going to the bond market, I was in my late 20s, and everyone told me it's too late. No one is
in your late 20s.
Yeah, no, it's too late. You've got to go into you've got to start out in the trading floor, and you're too old. They've got to get you when you're young. So I never let the traditional beliefs that are out there, the paradigms, stop me. I mean, it's a matter of understanding what is the root of that belief, right? What is the paradigm that you're operating under, and is it valid? That all of these people around you are operating under this paradigm, and is there another paradigm that you can work with? And so I think that's something that I learned, throughout my career, and it's something that I've applied. I started out, I actually was a peer counselor at my university, and for about a year, my senior year. And I always thought that I had a system, and I thought if I could teach my system to other people, that they would find going through the university a little less stressful, they'd be a little less anxious, and they would be able to feel more successful. But I also found out that you can't teach, it's not one size fits all. Right. And the system may work for me, but it doesn't work for everyone. And so I needed to take the time to understand, the challenges of my clients, at that time students, and try to figure out the best way to help them on their journey through the university. And I've applied that throughout my entire life in helping my colleagues, my friends, and even mentees that I've been assigned to, as in some of my jobs.
Now you went to UC Berkeley. And you went to law school at UC Berkeley. Is that correct?
That's right. I went to they changed the name. Even that went through transition. So it used to be called Bolt Hall School of Law, and now it's called the Berkeley School of Law.
But you decided not to pursue that career and went a different way, right?
That's right. I was working for a top Wall Street firm, and I sat down. One of the lawyers that I really, really admired in the firm, who I thought was at the top of his game. We were going over a project finance agreement, and there must have been about 12 volumes to that agreement. It was a very long agreement. So every single component of that project had its own volume. And I was asked to draft some agreements on some, I think it was owner provided equipment on an oil derrick. And I swear to you, that partner that I worked with knew every single paragraph and every single word in that agreement. It was impressive. He could spin the agreement in his brain. He could draw out points of law. He could draw out exact language that were pivotal to the interpretation of the agreement. And I said to myself, I think that's an unbelievable feat. I think that he's a great lawyer, but that's not what I want to do. So.
And how old were you then when you said that?
I think I was I was actually in my early 20s, and I realized, that's not really what I want to do, and what is it that I want to do? And so that was the beginning of questioning whether the path that I was on was going to get me to the place I wanted to go. And that type of thinking, I think, affects many people in the industry.
Right.
And I think it's a matter of every path is a good path. There is no right or wrong path. It's a matter of making that choice and whether that path is right for you. And only you can make that choice. It's not something your mother can make for you. It's not something your father can make for you. It is a very personal thing. And sometimes, one needs to have another person that they respect to walk that path with them, and someone that they can bounce ideas off of. They can discuss their strategies, their plans, their concerns, and just to have another mind there with you to make that path, that process a little less lonely. Yeah. Because oftentimes you can't talk about these issues with your family members, your spouse, people at work. That's not something that you really are able to really talk to about. And if you talk to your friends about it, they may not be your friends for very long, right? So and they may not really understand, why you're even having this problem, because you're very successful. You have a wonderful career ahead of you. And why don't you want to do this and just keep going? So I think that's really one of the issues that's as Celia and I were talking about, this process of rethinking and of transitioning is a lifetime process, and we hopefully get better at it as we get older. Right. But even myself, as I go through my own life, face a number of transitions. And part of it is because of, example is COVID-19. I mean, there are external forces that cause you to rethink and the path that you're on, and whether that path is getting you to where you want to go. So in a way, you can use COVID-19 as a great opportunity to reassess, is this path I'm on going to take me to the place that I want to go? So
what's the first thing you do if someone comes to you and they say, look, I'm just not certain of what direction I want to go in, can you help me out? What's your process? What are some of the steps you go through?
Well, I think the first step is to define the present moment. I mean, what is the current situation that the individual is facing? Right. And what are the factors that are affecting his personal life, his career life, right. His relationships, and his spiritual life? I mean, what is it what is your current state, and what are the factors affecting it? And from there, you get a baseline to understand, where exactly the pressure points are. We tend to operate, you can say, on a flight or fight basis. So there are push factors and there are pull factors that affect our behavior. And on a very short-term basis, and I feel that the push factors are very short-term. I mean, they affect you. The pain is there. When the pain goes away, you tend to forget about it. The pull factors are much more long-lasting because you have something that draws you, that draws your mind, that draws your being, that draws your spirit to that end goal. And no matter what happens, in your present moment, that pull factor is your guiding light. And it brings clarity to the present moment. So it's understanding the current situation, right? Where are you now? Understanding what are the motivating factors, what are the pull factors, what are the push factors, and understanding whether those goals that have emerged from this process are properly aligned with your purpose, your vision, your values, and the beliefs that support those values. All of this operates within a paradigm environment. Right? It's like gravity. Drop an apple, it falls, right? So right. They're broad, paradigms that are out there. Some people call them principles that are out there that affect every job, every opportunity, every decision. But they're very specific paradigms on a more tactical basis that affect specific careers, specific businesses, specific companies. And so you need to understand, you need to ask yourself, do I understand these broad paradigms, within my own company, within my own industry, within the types of interactions that I have with people. So that process, a lot of people never really think about that.
Right.
So I think that it's sitting down and walking that, having that first meeting and understanding where that person is coming from, and whether this is something that really requires interaction with me. For example, if someone just is not happy with their job, they love their career, right? They think that it is fulfilling. They think that it meets all of their basic needs. They see a career direction. They don't need to see me. They need to see a headhunter, because a headhunter will find them another job exactly like that in another company, right? Maybe a competitor, or maybe a company that with a better reputation in the market.
Right.
So that you can continue on in that career, and maybe what you think might be a better vehicle, or a vehicle with a better fit. So that's really the difference. The mentoring process is something which I think that there are a lot of ways to look at this relationship with your mentor, right? Mm-hmm. I kind of define this area of personal advisory, you might call it, into three areas. One is mentoring, and mentoring is more, you can say, is more strategic in nature. You're really talking about alignment, whether or not your vision aligns with your values, aligns with your beliefs. And then all of this has to align with a broader purpose that you set out for yourself, and it's about understanding that in yourself. The mentor doesn't tell you what to do. The mentor basically allows you to discover within yourself the answer that fits you. So if you expect to go to a mentor and say, tell me what I should do, that's not really the answer that the mentor, should give you. Actually, I think. Okay, so that's what I think my definition of what mentoring is about. There's another type of relationship which I call coaching, and there are many crossovers, right? So this is my own personal definition. So I see coaching as more tactical in nature. You're not a good manager. So your company hires a coach to come in and teach you to be a good manager. And there are certain skill levels that good managers have. One is that they're better communicators, right? So are you communicating your ideas clearly? The second is that, are you giving clear direction? You need to give strategic direction to your subordinates. Are you able to judge what your subordinate is able to do in terms of skill level and in terms of ability to take stress and instruction? Some subordinates are great by giving them one thing to do, right? You do X, right? And you do it in this process. Others, they don't really want structure. They want, you tell me what the goal is and I'll get there, right?
Right.
So this is, and if you take one subordinate or one colleague and you apply the techniques that work on another, let's say one that just needs to have everything mapped out, and you give that person the end goal. Here's the end goal. I don't care how you get there, right?
Right.
That creates an enormous amount of stress to that personality type. And it stresses that will emerge in other things that person does. On the other hand, if you take someone that is very self-motivated, he's very focused, he's very end goal oriented, and you start walking through in detail what he's supposed to do to get there, it'll drive him crazy.
Right.
So that's coaching. It's very, very, specific, and that's my definition anyway, and task oriented. So it's more tactical. And then there's a third element, which I call sponsorship. This is generally a senior person in the organization or in the market that is able to advocate for you. So they'll say, look, I think this guy's a great guy. He'd make a great addition to your company. He is your advocate. And so they're advocates that are people that you have worked with, right? That maybe they're your reference in your resume. But this type of advocate is someone that I envision as someone that's kind of outside he's not really looking. Yes? Hello? Okay.
I don't know what happened. I plugged into my Ethernet now, just in case it was me.
Okay.
Okay, great. Let's go. So you were talking about advocates.
Yeah, sponsorship.
Sponsorship.
So the third element is sponsorship, and sponsorship is about advocacy. And these are generally senior people that are in the industry. It's not an age issue. It's about experience and recognition in a particular industry. And it doesn't need to even be in an industry. It could be a business partner, or it could be someone that is in the same club as the individual that could help you. And that person sees a connection between you and someone else they know in their network, and they bring it together. Right? So they are acting as your advocate, right? They think, okay, you're good at this. This is your vision. This is what you want to do. I know someone else that's looking for someone that is like you, and they bring it together. And advocacy is a very important element. It's almost like the universe coming out to help you. Someone making a connection and saying, you would be great at this. And then they bring you a vehicle, they bring you an individual, they bring you an organization to work with, or they bring you, into a situation where you're able to accomplish your vision and your goals. So that's advocacy or sponsorship. So that's how I kind of divide up this process. We're talking about mentorship, which is more broad and strategic, focused on your vision and your direction. We're talking about what I call coaching, which is more tactical, or are we talking about sponsorship and advocacy? And so all of this sometimes is wrapped up into one term. So individuals often take all these different roles and they put it into the mentoring bucket, or they take all these different roles, they put it in the coaching bucket, or they take all these different roles and put it into the sponsorship bucket. Right. So, and you'll get the most unlikely people that are sponsors.
Right.
I'll give you an example. So you've got Roger Ailes, right? And he's probably one of the lightning rods for the Me Too movement. And you've got someone like Rachel Maddow, right? Who is probably the polar opposite. But Roger Ailes was Rachel Maddow's sponsor. He saw Rachel and saw that she was good, you know, and that that she would make an impact on this world. And she was, you know, he was her advocate. I mean, I think Rachel admitted, said that, you know, he was always willing to bounce ideas off of, you know, have her call, that he actually recommended her and advised her. And so he was a sponsor of Rachel's. One would never know this, but, you know, it was one interview that I saw that Rachel did. She admitted it. She said, you know, yes, he did all these things, but he was actually, as an industry guy, he was actually very supportive of her career. Right. So that's sponsorship comes from different places. Or an example would be Jokowi in Indonesia. He's the current president. And he is a little bit more liberal. And there are more traditional kind of Muslim political parties. But actually, one of the leaders of this Muslim political party saw something in Jokowi, and he was actually his sponsor. He got Jokowi into the national limelight. And even though they ran against each other, actually. So you can see this very unusual situation. You know, maybe the person that's best able to see your talent is your competitor. And strangely enough, that competitor at least became a sponsor and got him into the national scene. So it's you never know where that sponsor is going to come from and who you're going to resonate with.
Right. So, Ray, you know, there's a ton of questions I want to ask you, because this is a really pertinent topic, especially in today's uncertain times, which is why we called it career transitioning in uncertain times. How do you deal with the fear factor yourself, and how do you advise your clients when they're just frozen with fear? Because it's scary making a transition in your career, or even a transition in countries, which you are well versed at, moving around all over the world, and at different age levels, right? So there's a number of different questions all packed into this one. But if we could touch on some of those topics, that would be great.
Sure. One of the things about fear is leaning into it. So you need to lean into the fear. You need to understand why you're afraid. There's nothing wrong with being afraid. It is a natural reaction that you have and that all human beings have in an uncertain or dangerous situation. So uncertainty itself brings fear. So what you need to do is lean into it and to understand it, understand that fear and what is driving it. And ask yourself, is there something you can do to address that root cause of that fear, and then work on that. So it's a matter of chunking it down. So I'll give you a very simple example that happened to me. I mean, I think it was when I was in high school. So this is an example of fear. So English was my second language. So I had to learn English. My English was pretty good, actually, because I came to America when I was 4, so it was already good. But the problem was, whenever I got nervous, you know, I would stutter, and it was horrible, right? I get nervous, and you know, and in a situation where I'm in front of a crowd, and I would just start stuttering. So I was 10th grade, and you know, these traumatic experiences that individuals face. It's 10th grade, and I was reading Julius Caesar in front of my class. And I had this fear, you know, fear leading into it, fear in the middle of it, fear throughout, right? And I just started stuttering. I mean, it was just stuttering, and I was so determined I was going to finish. I wasn't going to end. And so I stuttered through the entire passage, and by the time I was done, the entire class just was rolling on the ground. They couldn't help themselves. They tried as much as they could not to laugh, but then they just were just rolling because it was pretty funny. And I was just mortified. I mean, I think it affected my performance in the class. I got a horrible grade. And I realized my chances of going to college was disappearing before my eyes. And I said to myself, my God, let's try to understand why I'm so afraid, right? And one, do I have a speech impediment? I mean, I went through all these things. Is there something psychologically wrong with me? Do I have a speech impediment? What's the problem? And after a bit of self-diagnosis and introspection, I felt the problem that I had was that I was just afraid. I mean, I was uncomfortable with crowds, and I was nervous, and I needed to get comfortable. So that was a solution. I needed to get comfortable. When I'm comfortable and I'm calm, it all comes out. It looks good. Everything sounds great. When I'm nervous and uncertain, I just start stuttering.
So how'd you get yourself comfortable? What did you do?
I decided the best way to get comfortable was to lean into my fear. I joined the debate team.
Oh, geez. Okay.
I joined the debate team. So I joined the debate team in my junior year, which is actually quite late. Anyone that does debate, you have to join your freshman year, and then you get these seals and rankings. So the National Forensic League. So I joined the debate team, and I figured if I debated every day, and if I gave speeches every day, at some point, I was going to get comfortable, right? And I leaned into my fear. And did people laugh at me? Absolutely. Was I great when I started? No, I wasn't. I mean, people were rolling in the grounds. Judges were wondering what's going on here, right? So I mean, it was all about preparation, and it was all about leaning into the fear. And there's a novice tournament that they have every year for everyone in San Diego, and I took third place in that tournament.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Not bad for a guy who was not just starting out this horrible place. And I think by the end, my debate partner wanted me on his team. The best debater in the team wanted me to be his partner. And we ended the year actually getting into the final round of the national qualifiers. We didn't make it, but at least we got into that final round. So it wasn't bad in terms of where I started and what was my motivation for going into it. For me, it was already a win,
right?
To be able to just not stutter. Everything else was a bonus after that.
Hey, everything counts. Let's fast forward that several years, and let's get to you're in the middle of a great career. Making, a good income, and you're not happy. You wake up one morning or several mornings and you're like, this is not what I want to do. What next?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because there are a lot of issues that you can't just, it's difficult to just pick up and go. Right? It has to really be well thought out, and there are a lot of hooks that keep you on your path. But I think that what motivated me was that I saw where it was going to go, where it was going, and I felt that life is short, and I had a few guiding lights that I wanted to do, in my life anyway. And what I was doing wasn't getting me there. And so it wasn't what I was doing was bad, or I didn't enjoy it, right? And that's what people feel guilty about, because generally when you're looking at your purpose, it's something that you love to do. Right? It's something that you're good at. It's something that allows you to offer a gift to the world. It means it is allowing you to reach your full potential, right? And by full potential, it means you're doing something that is benefiting a lot of people or benefiting others. At least in your mind, you think that. And it's something that you can get paid for. So it's the convergence of these four elements that define your purpose. And when you get a sense of misalignment, it's usually something in those four areas that's not working for you. And you need to sit down and you need to define what it is and try to figure it out, chunk it down and try to figure out a way to address this. And I made a decision that, I needed to get closer to the coal face. And so there was an opportunity that had come up to transition from being on the sell side effectively and moving into the buy side. And that opportunity came up. It was an opportunity to start something new, to start a new operation, a new firm. It was very entrepreneurial. And I decided to take that opportunity. And that doesn't mean it's certain. I mean, it's not certain that it's going to be a success. It's not certain that it's going to lead you necessarily, ultimately to where you want to go. But it is a decision that you make in that moment, assessing the facts that you have. And in that moment, it is the vehicle for you, right? So that's how you have to make that kind of a decision. You can think it through all you want, but ultimately you can't expect it to be 100% certain. You've got to take that risk, and you've got to realize it is certain in this present moment. Right. Right. Tomorrow you're in the car now, right? And you're driving it. It depends on where you take it. Right. So when you open that door, all your other choices change. When you walk through that door and you close it behind you, all the other choices change. You are impacting what happens. So you have to accept that your presence changes the outcome, of the scenarios that you worked out.
Wow. So Rey, I've known you a while, and every time I see you, you're usually in a suit. You're so corporate. You're very businesslike. And yet you have this spiritual side, very deep, a lot of wisdom to share with clients. How did you get the balance of the corporate and the spiritual? And how are you able to, I imagine a lot of your clients are probably corporate clients, or maybe not. But some corporate clients are, they say, no, I don't want to get into that spiritual side, too airy-fairy. But you're really able to marry the two and come up some really sage advice. How did that come about?
Well, I think it's a question of survival, right? So one of the best places, I'm interested in the psychoanalytical aspects of Buddhism. So it's quite an interesting area that I found when I was in college. And one of the best places to practice detachment, right, is on a trading floor, because there's a lot of attachment on a trading floor. You've got the market is attaching you. You've got market movements. You've got very aggressive traders. You've got different deals and different things happening all the time. And you need clarity in that environment. So you need to triage. One, you cannot be reactive. If you're reactive, you'll make a mistake. And you're interacting with people that are very attached, and that you need to be empathetic, right? And because you're working together, and you're going to be working together for a long time, so you can't lash out of anger. You've got to, work the team, and you've got to get the team to move in a common goal, a common direction. And it's very important that you remain steady, right? And I think that not being reactive, not getting attached, is an important skill to operate in that environment. Now, mind you, you can get very attached. I'm not saying that there's not one way. There are a lot of people on the trading floor that are very attached, they're very emotional, they're very passionate, that are very effective. Okay, so it's not a question of whether it's not a good or bad. It's a style issue, and what you would like, what is good for you. And so I chose this path in terms of dealing with that particular environment. So I took it as, it's an environment that I can practice certain skills. You could be negative about it. I've known, like, a lot, for example, lawyers are very familiar to having an office. So the paradigm in the trading world is that you don't have an office. If you lock yourself up in your office, you're out of touch of the market. You're out of touch of your troops, your team. Lawyers will come and they'll say, how can anyone think in this noisy environment? People screaming, yelling, they're shushing the people next to them. But that's not the intention of this environment. This environment is supposed to be noisy.
Right.
When in a traditional trading floor, and mind you, that's changing now, because Bloomberg and the electronic systems, you don't get the noise and the buzz as much as you used to before Bloomberg, right, and the trading systems. But you would, when something would happen politically or economically, or there was an announcement, you would hear a roar in the floor. And it would start usually from the FX guys and move to the rates guys and move to the bond guys. And you would just hear this roar. And it is the markets coming alive. And it's exciting. I mean, it's the pulse. You lock yourself up in your room, right? You're not going to be in that mix. So it's a matter of understanding the paradigm and adjusting, So leadership in that environment, if you're a leader in that environment and you lock yourself up in your room, it sends a bad message.
Yeah.
So you need to understand the environment that you're operating in and the paradigms that you have to work with. And then looking at yourself and finding what strategies and tactics work within that paradigm.
Is there an age limit to transitioning careers or thinking about transitioning careers? Or what do you think about age and how it fits into what someone wants to do and their purpose?
I think age is, in terms of adult development, I think age is an important factor. Right? I mean, it is an important factor. And it's not something that is going to be ignored. But we have, certain beliefs or certain beliefs, and I changed that. There's a belief and there's the paradigm. The paradigm is a reality, right? We have beliefs that are very limiting about age.
Right.
And those beliefs are defined by the society, right? So you need to break out of those limiting beliefs and look at what you would like to do. And
right.
Given what you would like to do and where you would like to go, that, to pick a strategy or a tactic or a plan that's going to get you to where you want to go. So I think that the first example I gave you, where going on the trading floor at my late 20s and just starting out, and everyone said, no, you're not going to do this. Right. That was a belief, a limiting belief, and a false belief in the paradigm. Right. So I wanted to work on the trading floor. I wanted to do bonds, and you know what, maybe you're right, I'm not going to be a trader, but where's the soft underbelly? And maybe the area of capital markets or structured bonds is something where age doesn't matter as much.
Right.
Right. So there are ways to get your foot in the door and to look at what value you bring. So it really comes down to the question of value. So you have to look at the value that you bring to the organization or to the activity. And you need to believe in that value. And you need to offer that value to the people that you want to work with, your clients, and they'll price you in the market. The market is always right? It's always right. There's a buyer and a seller, right? You may think you have a great product and a great idea. You may think you bring value, but maybe the market doesn't think so now, right? So the market is actually teaching you. It's not saying that you shouldn't do it. It's just telling you that you need to tweak it. So the market, in a way, is imagine working every day and you're being graded every day you go to work. That's what the market does in this industry, at least in the industry that I've been in. You're graded every day. You see everyone's personality come out. They'll say, oh, well, my book is still good. It's a question of time. It's just got to hold a little bit longer. They're praying for the market to bail them out. Right? It's called talking your book. And so you always have to judge whether or not you are being real. Are you just talking your book because it's a position that you have? Are you really honestly assessing the position you've taken in the market? Maybe it's time to cut loss. So this is, there's a combination of conviction and reality that you have to balance.
Amazing. Now, I was reading something that you wrote, and you were talking about intrapreneurship versus entrepreneurship. Do you want to explain that a little bit? Because I found it, there's a distinct difference between the two.
That's right. So this was actually one of my clients. So he's an interesting fellow. He's a big data analytics specialist consultant, and he's reassessing the path that he's on, and he's in the consulting business. And the consulting business, you sometimes don't see a job through. People want to define what is my problem, and you define the problem, and then they go on to execute the solution. So he was looking at different types of alternatives, in terms of an alternative path, and it was very broad. So we looked at, it was looking at entrepreneurship, the digital space, and he was familiar with others that have gone into that space. And I said, well, there are, 4 ways you can make money. You can make money in a job. You can make money being self-employed. So a lot of doctors are self-employed. You can make money by creating a business or business system. And you can make money by being an investor. So of all of these opportunities I told him that you're looking at, you should put them in these, at least start organizing them into these 4 buckets, right? So that you organize a little bit. So you see this opportunity your friend told you about, you put it in the digital bucket, and here's an investment opportunity, you put that in the investment bucket, and then you decide, after getting enough of them, you decide, okay, I've got enough of them. Now let's go through and try to understand which ones are best for me, right? And I said, well, each one has a different, element to it, right? So if you're in the self-employed bucket, you are still working out of time. If you don't work, you don't make money, right? If you're in the employment bucket, your time is not your own. And again, if you don't work, you don't get paid, right? So you get paid because of the time that you You put in maybe not as sensitive if you're in the self-employed bucket. If you're in the business system bucket, you're creating a business system that requires a bit of capital. So you have to find out where that capital is going to come from. And because you've got overhead costs, that you've got to deal with. You got to feed yourself, put shelter above your head. And then, you've got to decide how long is it going to take you to get cash flow positive. And so that's something to think about. And then finally, the investment bucket, well, it's all about capital. So you've got money now. Where you're going to put it, and what kind of return are you going to get, right? And what is the risk profile? So this is so in the end, he had the desire to be an entrepreneur, but didn't want to take the risk associated with it. So the solution was to be an entrepreneur within an organization. And so what does that mean? It means seeing something that organization is not doing that would be value additive. So he came up with an idea that he researched and he looked at. And as we walked through, he says, well, can you do that in an organization? Says, yeah, we can do that. And we came up with the idea of entrepreneurship, that let's find an organization, let's come up with the idea, let's find an organization you can sell the idea to, and see if you can create a job for yourself, a job that you want. And so he was able to do that. I mean, he was able to come up with an idea that was value additive, and he was able to sell the idea to a top company. And now I think he is in his third or fourth interview. So that's the idea of entrepreneurship. Being an entrepreneur within an organization and bringing value additive ideas that are transformational, So I think that is able to fulfill some of the structural and safety concerns, but yet bring out the entrepreneurial talent of the individual. And it's when I say that what attracts me to mentoring is really about bringing out human potential. That if I can help someone, bring out their full potential, I think that's a big deal. I mean, you get someone that is at minimum a happier person in this world, and God only knows we need better. We need more happy people.
Yes, we do, especially now. So you've traveled all over. You've done business in multiple countries. You have incredible networking skills. I mean, you just happen to know somebody in the Philippines, someone over in Palau, someone here in Orange County, someone over in London. How do you do it? What's your secret for networking?
Well, I actually think that I'm not as good as I'd like to be, right? So I believe that the digital age offers more opportunities in terms of networking, and I haven't really mastered it, right? So one of the things that I believe that you need to do is you need to be interesting. You need to be interested. So you need to be interested in the people that you talk to, and it needs to be sincere, and I think that as long as you have a sincere interest, then you become effective in networking. I think that what people often do wrong is they network for the sake of networking, and they're really not that interested in the people that they talk to or attempt to network with. And it's important to be interested. And I think that's, if I have any advice, it would be just honestly be interested in the people that you interact with and have a sincere and honest interest in what they're doing. And I think people will, that comes across, you know. And because if you're running around collecting business cards, what does that do? You don't really understand that person. And you have to look at your end goal is to understand what value you can bring, right? And I think that oftentimes when you think about networking, you think, I think what comes to mind is what value can the other person bring me, right? I have another contact, have this. No, I mean, no, the question is what value can you bring? What can you do to help the other person's life a little bit better? I mean, I think that really is the issue, is that, you know, it comes down to that. You can control giving, you can't control receiving. So control your giving.
Nice. Wow. Yeah, I always found it fascinating that you were able to just flutter around and go from country to country and meet these amazing business people all over the world that do provide huge services globally. But so your first trip from the United States, when you graduated from UC Berkeley, and what brought you? You went to Japan, is that correct? Or was it? Yeah.
It was Japan. I worked in Japan for about 5 years in the yen bond business.
So what, because I get asked this a lot, because I've kind of also jumped countries here and there. I've been to several and lived and worked in several. And like you, I've kind of transitioned career from, you know, everything from a resort developer to a veterinarian to now doing this, right? In Sydney and Florence and Hawaii and all these places. What do you think makes or creates the type of person, or what type of person would make that giant leap? Is there a certain personality type to transition, just like, you know, you and I have just gotten up and said, oh, that looks interesting, I'm going to go there? Or is it something you can develop?
Well, I think everything is learnable, right? So I believe that everyone has pretty much everyone has the same abilities. And it's the only difference is the desire, the will, and the training. So you need to get, you know, you can do it. You know, it's just a question of perspective. I mean, when I went to Japan, I think the last time I was there, I was 4 years old. I didn't speak Japanese. After 5 years, I mean, yeah, many people will say I still don't speak Japanese. But I was. You can look at it the way I looked at it is this: if I can operate on a Japanese trading floor, right, and I'm still alive, right? I mean, I'm still employed and still can make money. So my Japanese, that level of Japanese is good enough for me. Right? So it's trial by fire, right? Trial by fire. You either sink or swim. Is kind of how my father taught swimming to me, threw me in the ocean, and you know. So and when we were on a platform, kind of floating out there. So my dad throws me in, and I'm sinking, and I managed to claw my way back onto the platform. And he said, you know, so I was too angry to cry. And I said, I could have drowned out there. And my dad says, well, you didn't drown. You can swim now, you see? I said, no, you know.
Did he throw you back out again?
So yeah, so if it doesn't kill you, you know, it makes you stronger. So I mean, you know, it was an epiphany, right? I got what he was trying to say. He said, see, you're out, you can swim now. Not the prettiest strokes you got, but you did it. So
See, my father did the same thing. He threw me in the pool, only I sank. He did it a few times. He's like, okay, this child can't swim. And I tried taking lessons and the whole bit, and it wasn't until I was I think 24, 25, having lived in Hawaii now for a few years, and I still didn't swim.
Wow.
But then, long story short, I won't go into the details, but there was an event, called a boy, that basically led me into, oh, I better learn how to swim.
Wow.
So now I, scuba dive, surf, water ski, and do all that, but I'm still afraid of water.
Yeah, so I mean, the fear will always be there, as I
Right.
said. The fear will always be there.
Right.
It's a question of not being reactive to that fear.
Right.
So it's being able to look at the fear and understand it, not to diminish it, because the fear keeps you safe,
Right.
keeps you on edge, right? But the idea is not to be reactive to that fear, and be able to manage it. Right. So that's what allows you to make these pivots, is to understand, where is that sense of discomfort coming from, and really understand it, and then to figure out ways to mitigate that.
Right.
And what that actually is risk mitigation. So and for everyone is different.
Right.
So that's why it's not a one size fits all situation. It is very much each individual and everything they bring to that situation. So and it's a question of clarity and understanding. And I feel that mentoring is it's a sharing, and it is not about telling the mentee what they should do. It is allowing the mentee to discover what's already there.
Right. What's the difference in advice you'd give to a young person versus an older person that's been around the block a few times?
Well, I think that one way to look at analyzing this is maybe looking at it in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So when you're a young person, you're on, that hierarchy of needs. Actually, you're kind of on the lower rung of that. You can take that, right? So you need to figure out a way to, all the touchy-feely stuff is good, but you got to feed yourself. You got to get a job, right? So you gotta figure out a way to make money, and that's the first step. And then you've got to figure out, okay, so now I've figured out a way to make some money, right? And now you've got to tweak it. So you tweak it so it's more aligned with what you want to do, and more aligned with your values, more aligned with your beliefs, more aligned with your purpose that you found yourself in. So I think the advice that I would give is cut to the chase. You got to feed yourself. You can't be living at home all the time, right? So you gotta look at it from that perspective. But on the other hand, you've got to look at developing your tools and developing your strategic plan, and finding that vision of yours that you've got. So these steps may be stepping stones to your vision, and a lot of things will not unfold until much later. That's why that vision is critical to, and your purpose is critical to developing. Because, for example, the Asian bond market did not exist when I started my career. Did not exist.
Wow.
So I ended up in Japan because Japan had the only real bond market in Asia. So the dragon bond market came about. This is the offshore dollar market. I think it was in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. So you don't start out saying, I want to do that. You need to start out with a strategic direction and a purpose. And then as the situation evolves, I believe that you're able to better see that fits what I want to do, right? You see that thing that wasn't there before, that's exactly what I want to do. And because you already thought about it, you're first in line. No one else sees it. Everyone will say, "Oh, why are you doing that? You have this problem, that problem, this problem, that," and then and they'll discourage you, and they'll say, but you know that fits what you want to do. It fits your vision. It fits your purpose, and you value it, right? You value that opportunity, right? So I think that for a younger person, the first step is, hey, you got to feed yourself. So don't mess around here, right? The second is you've got to develop your purpose, your vision, and the realization that you're building tools to achieve that. And maybe from the ground up you're building it, and you've got to, sometimes you don't know what those tools are going to be. But I think my dad took that approach with me with colleges. It's all about tools. It's not really your major. Your major is something that should touch you. You should like doing it, but it's all about developing tools. So your analytical skills, then computer science was big. So I took some programming classes. So it was all what is in your toolkit. So for a younger person, it really is developing that toolkit. And the advice I would give is focus your vision, and you're finding that passion inside yourself. And you know what? It'll change. Your majors will change. Things will change, and you'll adjust. But there are certain things about that purpose that you've got that doesn't adjust. But the majors can adjust. That's not your purpose, right? That's a vehicle. So you've got vehicles, you've got tools, and you've got your purpose. And so that's what you're trying to align when you're young, when you're starting out at college or you're starting your career. That's what you're trying to do. Build that toolkit. Be able to support yourself and align it with your vision. When you're a little bit older, it's you've got a lot of tools already, and you've become an expert at something, right? And so you're looking at thinking out of the box. So you've now figured out rhythm, right? You've been successful, you've got a lot of accolades, you've got a lot of things you've done, and now you got to throw it all away. And you've got to open your mind, and you've got to think out of the box, because the world is changing. Mm-hmm. And that oftentimes you are imprisoned by your own success, because your success says you're supposed to be doing this because you're good at it. But it may no longer be aligned with the legacy you may want to leave this world. Right? So some people, they are doing what they love, right? They are good at it, and they're getting paid for it, right? But they feel empty. Where is it going, right? It's like, I love making this widget, right? It's a great looking widget. People look at it, they like it, and I love it. I'm good at it, and someone wants to pay me for it. I should be happy, or I should feel fulfilled, but for some reason, something's missing. Yeah. And what that something is, maybe a sense that you're not really giving, you're feeling that you're not giving what you really have to offer to the world, in a way, to society, to your family, your community, right? There's a feeling that your legacy is not being transmitted. And I'm not saying that you should quit your job or you should quit doing what it is that you're doing, but you need to understand the source of that discomfort and figure out a way to address it. But it starts with identifying.
Fascinating. Oh, go on.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of individuals that have been very successful in their careers, and that are reached a point where they, they want to make a transition. I've done that. I'm good at it. What do I do next? And it's not easy because you've learned certain behaviors. You've got certain, back to Maslow's hierarchy. You've developed esteem in this field. So esteem is something which is number 3 or number 4 on that hierarchy list. And are you throwing it away? You're not really throwing it away, but you're not getting stroked every day the way you used to on it, right? So are you going to miss that? Right. So that's what you're having to contend with.
So Rey, we'll end on, who are your ideal clients?
Well, my ideal client is someone who is successful at what they do. They're mid-career, they're going full steam ahead, and they don't really have the space to go and they're feeling something isn't right, but they don't have the time to really sit down and work through this by themselves. That if they had someone to work with them, to walk this path with them for a bit, to help them discover their purpose, their vision, what they want to do to make them feel that they're reaching their full potential, that they're adjusted the direction that they're going, and that it's going, now their new path is going to bring them to their destination where they can reach their full potential. I think that's something that I would like to help my clients do, because I know it's a very difficult thing.
Yeah.
It's because that individual knows what he needs to do generally, but the burden of his work-life environment won't give him the space to do that alone. That working with someone efficiently and effectively will allow him to go through the traps of making that transition.
Nice. Well, Rey, next time I get a chance to interview you, I'd love to speak about how you mentor your young teenage daughter, because I know you're a phenomenal mentor to her, and we've shared many stories and conversations about her, and I just find them fascinating. And I think a lot of people can learn about parenting and mentorship through parenting.
Wow, I don't know. I think that he's it's about giving them space. You just, all a parent can do is plant seeds and see if any of these seeds end up growing, right? So you plant and you kind of water and you see, is it gonna grow or not? Right? And once in a while, you're shocked, right? So you're like, wow, she got that, right? And that's I had one of those moments recently.
Well, that's the whole thing about becoming a mentor, being a mentor, is you're planting seeds, and and seeing if any one of them will grow with your clients. So
it's in ways the same. It's similar. It's similar in that
right.
way. You can't force it. I mean, with my daughter, you just can't force it. You just plant seeds. You hear the potential options, potential consequences. But at the end of the day, she has to walk. She needs to walk through that door. If she doesn't walk through that door, the lesson is lost.
Right.
She's got to walk through that door. And even though as a parent you want to say, just don't do that. It's not a good idea. But sometimes, if she doesn't walk through that door and she doesn't get that lesson, the lesson never happens. It never takes. Right. So I think the most difficult thing for a parent is to let your child make mistakes. So that's the most important thing.
Well, Ray, thank you so much for spending this hour-ish with me. I really appreciate it. And for those of you listening, thank you for spending the time with us as well, because I know your time is precious. So, Ray, until the next interview, thank you again. And thanks for being an OnPoint mentor.
Thank you.
Okay.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.